Good morning, everyone. How is your health? Yesterday, we completed IDE of VB, but 3 to 4 points is remaining there. So, we have to start it today. The form designer window. We have to start it from form designer window. The form designer window is where you design the form that make up your user interface. Serves as a window that you customize to design the interface of your application. You add controls, graphics and pictures to a form to create the look you want. Each form in your application has its own form designer windows, contains the background for the Windows program that you are writing. You draw and place items on the form that your program's user will eventually see and interact with. If you use a Windows word processor, the form would hold the document that you are editing. Although not every Visual Basic program requires form. Most do, because most Visual Basic program exist to display information for the user and retrieve information from the user. The Project Explorer window. The Project Explorer, already I had given explanation regarding this, but I am repeating this point over here because it is very important point. That's why the Project Explorer window holds the file names for the files included in your project. A Visual Basic Windows program often contains several different kinds and types of files that all work in the single running application. The project window contains the list of the file used in the current application. Given the common Visual Basic terminology, a Visual Basic application is generally called a project. The project window contains the contents of the project. The project window is simply a description of the files, but the files all reside separately on the disk. Next one is the properties window. Already I had given the explanation regarding this. That's why next one is the code window. Unlike most other programming languages, you do not have to write much code as you develop applications in Visual Basic. The more advanced the application needs to be, the more code you will have to write to connect things together. The visual parts of Visual Basic, however, eliminate much of the code that you would have to write if you were still working in a text-based environment. Although you should not expect to understand anything just yet, a code window that contains a fairly complex routine. The code in the code window is the program's source code, which you learned about in the previous unit. Right? Already I had given explanation regarding this. When the user runs the program, Visual Basic and your computer interprets that source code and executes the instructions in the source code. Now next one is there. We had completed already completed this form layout window, toolbar, menu bar, etc. I don't think so there is any problem in it. I don't think so. Next one is there. Now we have to move on our another chunks. when we have to do the work in VB at that time, just you will have to use to about 3 terms. You can see these 3 terms frequently over there, right? So you will have to learn about it. That is method, event, and properties. Is that clear, everyone? It is also very important question according to point of view of your examination. So it must be necessary. You will have to learn about it. Okay, let's continue. Properties. First we have to start there. Properties. Controls properties detail given. I am giving here, but you are already known as Visual Basic understand the properties demonstrated by any program. On each and every program we can see properties. We have to give the different properties to create the application. For each and every control has its own properties. Some of the properties which can be seen in another control also, but some of the properties we can see only that in that particular control, right? Okay. All controls are different and work efficiently. Work differently. All the controls work differently, but all control have its own property. You use different controls for different things, even among controls of the same type. However, differences exist. Those differences reside in the control properties. A property determines how a control differs from other controls. By using these properties, we can differ the control with another controls. Every object in a VB program has properties. You can add descriptive titles controls. The title of a control is one of its property settings. The background color another property that you can set. Although you should stick to form with white backgrounds for the sake of consistency. It is used for most Windows program. You can change, the programmer can change it. Each control has a different set of property values. You often set initial property value when you place controls on the form. During the execution of the program, your code also often changes property values. The properties window makes it easy for you to see properties when you place control on the form and build your application. The properties window contains a list of every property that you can specify at design time. For example, that you can set when you place a command button on a form at design time. You can also read and change many of them when you run the program. The properties window offers several ways of setting property values. Notice that the properties window contains a scrolling list of properties available at design time for controls, a data entry and drop-down list for setting property values, and a drop-down list for selecting another control's properties. Next one is the control events. Now we have to move on our next control. Right? Next one is the control events. Events are what happen in and around your program. For example, when a user clicks button, many events occur. The mouse button is pressed, the command button in your program is clicked, and then the mouse button is released. These three things correspond to the mouse down event, the click event, and the mouse up event. During this process, the get focus event for the command button and the lost focus event for whichever object previously held the focus also occur. Again, not all controls have the same events, but some events are said by many controls. These events occur as a result of some specific user action, such as moving the mouse, pressing a key on the keyboard, or clicking a text box. These types of events are user-initiated events and are what you will write code for most often. Next one is the control method. I had given explanation regarding control properties and control events. Now we have to move on control method. Predefined actions that can be performed by an object. You can say that. What is the meaning of control method? Predefined actions that can be performed by any of the object is known as method. Every method of the control is predefined by the Visual Basic itself. Method of the control is behave like the different type of the inbuilt function which is restricted to that control only. Methods are blocks of code designed into controls that tell the control how to do things. Right? So, method is over here. Control, method and event. It must be necessary. It is very important question also. Describe the method, event and controls of VB. At that time, you will have to write this answer. We can utilize different important controls in VB. For all this important control, there is default event. Now we have to see this. Our next topic is that default events for important control. For form control, load event is default event. For picture box control, click event is by default event. For label control, by default click event. For text box control, by default change event. For frame control, by default drag and drop event. Do not forget, I am giving you explanation regarding default event of each and every control, important control of VB. I am repeating this one. For load by default event for form control, click by default event for picture box control, click by default event for label control, change by default event for text box control, drag and drop by default event for frame control, right? Okay, our next one next one control is a command button control. For this control, click is by default event. Our next control is there checkbox control. Again here, click is by default event. Our next control is that option button control. Click is by default event. Combo box control. Here, change is by default event. List box control. Again here, change is by default event. Vertical scroll bar. Here again, change event is by default event. Horizontal scroll bar control. Again, change is by default event. Timer control. Timer is by default event. For timer control, timer event, right? Drive or directory list box control. Again here, change is the by default event. File list control. Here, click is by default event. Next one, last but not least, image control. Here, click is by default event, right? So, these all are the important controls default event. Now we have to move on our next topic, that is file extension of VB. Just we have to see the different file extension of VB. All the VB project is divided into different modules. Each and every module work independently and we can design independently. We can save all these modules with different name also. To save the VB project, we can utilize different extension here. Which are they that I am saying this one, right? Okay. VB project. When do you want to make the project in VB? At that time, the project, it will be served with VBP extension. The extension of VB project file is the .vbp. The extension of VB workspace file is that .vbw. The extension of VB project group file is .vbg. The extension of VB form control is that .frm. The extension of module files is that .bas. The extension of class modules is .cls. The extension of ActiveX control file is that .ocx. The extension of user document file is that .dob. The extension of property page is that .pag. Right? So, all these extension we can utilize in VB. So, in other words, we can say that in VB we can utilize different file according to our requirements, and by using it we can prepare our application, right? So, now we have to move on our next topic. Object naming method. Now we have to move on our next topic, that is object naming method. Already I had given some discussion, I have given some explanation in last session, and now I would like to give some more information regarding this. It should be compulsory how to give their name to the object for easy identification. So we have to give that every time appropriate name for each and every object. By VB, default name must be given for each and every object. But according to our requirements, if we want to make changes in it, we can do it. Every time, by default, name must be given by the VB itself. But according to our requirements, if we want to make changes in the name of object, we can do it. We have to give the name in any particular manner. We have to write the name of object in lowercase. We have to write the name of object in 3 characters according to the given object. For example, if there is a form control, form is also a control. That's why we can say that form is a control. If we want to give there the name for it, my form, right? At that time we have to utilize the FRM for this. But first we have to write their FRM and then we have to utilize their my form. Every time we have to utilize their prefix in appropriate manner. Okay. For form, it is a form control, we have to utilize their FRM prefix and default name form 1. For label, prefix is their LBL and default name is their label 1. List box LST and default name is their list 1. By default, each and every control name, when we want to write code, at that time you can see that if label is there, then level 1, level 2. If form is there, then form 1, form 2. But in writing of code, you will have to utilize this prefix over there, and you don't want to utilize it. It can be right by default over there. When we do the project of VB, at that time you can understand this point over there. But right now, you will have to understand only these things over there. Again, I am repeating this. For form control, prefix is the FRM, and the default name is the form 1. Label LBL, and default name is the level 1. Next control is the list box. LST prefix and default name is the list 1. Checkbox prefix is the CHK and default name is the check 1. Combo box control, the prefix is that we can utilize the CBO prefix and by default name is the combo 1. Command button control, the prefix is that .cmd and the default name is that command 1. Option button prefix is that opt and default name is that option 1. Text box control prefix is the .txt and default name is there text 1. Right? Next one is there frame. Next one is there frame. The prefix is that FRM and default name is there frame 1. Our next control is there horizontal scroll bar. The prefix is there HSB. Default name is there H scroll 1. Next one is there vertical scroll bar control. Prefix is there VSB and default name is there V scroll 1. Next control is there timer control. Prefix is there TMR and default name is there timer 1. Is that clear, everyone? So here our first lecture, the first lesson is over here with introduction of VB, right? So from next lesson, just we have to start our next lesson 2, and that is form control. Is that clear, everyone? So from next lesson, we have to start it, form control. Now this lecture is over here. All of